Okay, let's talk about one of the most underrated parts of your entire body. Tucked away at the very back of your head is this structure that has more brain cells, more neurons, than the rest of your brain combined. And yet, we almost never talk about it. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain on this unsung hero, the cerebellum. I mean, really think about that for a second. The amount of pure calculation it takes to do something like catch a ball is insane. Your brain is running this incredibly complex physics simulation in real time, making everything smooth, effortless, automatic. So who's running this amazing autopilot system? Well, you guessed it. It's the cerebellum. The name literally means little brain, and honestly, it's the perfect name for it. It's not the CEO giving the big commands. It's the master coordinator, the project manager that takes those commands and fine-tunes everything, making sure all your movements are smooth, accurate, and perfectly on time. All right, so to really get what happens when things go wrong with it, we first need a super simple map of the territory. And the good news is, for our purposes, we can basically break the cerebellum down into just two main functional zones.
You know what I love about this is how beautifully simple it is. The midline of the cerebellum, which has this cool name, the vermis, it controls the midline of your body, your core, your trunk. So if something affects the vermis, you get truncal instability. Basically, you lose your core stability. You can't walk straight. And then the sides, the hemispheres, they control the sides of your body, your arms and legs. Now, here's the really crucial part. A problem on one side of the cerebellum affects the same side of the body. Doctors call this ipsilateral. So damage to the right side of the cerebellum messes up the right arm and leg. It's that direct.
And here is the perfect real-world example of this. You've seen it, that classic stumbling, wide-legged walk when someone's had too much to drink. That's the cerebellum in action. It happens because alcohol just happens to really target the vermis, that midline part. It knocks out your core stability first, which is why the walk goes all wobbly, even while the arms might still be working okay. It's a perfect demonstration of this little brain map. Okay, so when a doctor thinks there might be a problem with the cerebellum, they're not just looking for general clumsiness. No, they're on the hunt for a very specific set of clues. You can kind of think of these as the telltale signs, the A's, D's, and N's of a coordinator that's gone offline. First up, we've got ataxia. This is the big one. It's really the umbrella term for the lack of voluntary coordination. Think of it as the main headline, cerebellar trouble. All the other specific signs we're about to get into, they're really just different flavors of ataxia. Then we get more specific with something called dysmetria. This is all about judging distance and scale. You know, when you reach for a glass of water, you don't think about it, you just do it. While someone with dysmetria might overshoot and smack the glass over, or they might undershoot and their hand just stops short. Their internal targeting system is totally on the fritz. Okay, I know, this one is a mouthful. Dysdiadochokinesia. But the idea behind it is actually pretty simple. It's just the breakdown of rhythm. The perfect way to picture this is that smooth, fast, back-and-forth motion you use when you're screwing in a light bulb. Someone with this sign just can't do that. Their movements get all clumsy, slow, and irregular. And it's not just about moving your body. The cerebellum also coordinates the superfine muscles you use for speaking. And when that coordination fails, you get dysarthria. It's often called scanning speech. It has this robotic staccato sound where each syllable is broken up and pronounced on its own. It loses all its natural flow, which you can imagine makes talking incredibly frustrating. So we know the clues, but how do doctors actually find them? Well, this is where a simple physical exam turns into this really fascinating piece of detective work, using these simple tests to uncover some really complex problems. The whole process is really systematic. It moves from the top down. Doctors will first check out the upper limbs, then the lower limbs, and then finally, they test the whole system working together by just watching the patient walk. Each of these tests is designed to push the cerebellum's coordination skills in a slightly different way. Now here's a little pro tip, a detail that really matters. In that finger-nose test, a doctor asks the patient to touch their own nose and then the doctor's finger. But here's the key. The doctor has to put their finger far enough away so the patient has to fully extend their arm to reach it. Why? Because that full extension is what brings out a very subtle intention tremor. It's a little shake that actually gets worse as you get closer to the target. It's a dead giveaway that might otherwise be missed. So imagine a patient comes in. They have terrible balance. Their walk is really unsteady. But here's the puzzle for the doctor. Is the problem in the coordinator, the cerebellum,
Or is it a problem with the information coming into the coordinator from the nerves? Well, it turns out there's one classic test that helps solve this whole thing. The big question is this: is the ataxia cerebellar, or is it sensory? Sensory ataxia happens when you lose what's called proprioception. That's your body's own internal GPS, its sense of where its limbs are in space. That information comes from nerves in your feet and legs. So how on earth do you tell the two apart? The answer is just brilliant. It's called the Romberg test. The doctor asks the patient to stand with their feet together, first with their eyes open and then with their eyes closed. Now here's the clever part. If the problem is sensory, if the information from the feet is bad, the patient can use their vision to cheat, to compensate, and they can stand pretty steady. But the second they close their eyes, that compensation is gone and they start to fall over. But if the problem is in the cerebellum, the coordinator itself is broken. Vision can't fix that. They're unsteady with their eyes open, and they're just as unsteady with them closed. So once a doctor is pretty sure it's a cerebellar problem, the next question is the big one. What's causing it? And one of the most powerful tools they have to figure this out is, believe it or not, a calendar. The timeline, how fast the symptoms showed up, tells you so much of the story. If the ataxia comes on suddenly, like over minutes to hours, you have to think about a stroke or a bleed in the brain. That's an emergency. If it develops more slowly, over days or weeks, doctors start looking for toxic causes, like a reaction to a medication or the effects of chronic alcoholism. And if it's this really slow, gradual decline over years, well, then the suspicion turns toward a neurodegenerative or an inherited condition. Okay, so let's wrap this up. What are the big things to take away? First, remember that simple map. Midline controls the trunk, hemispheres control the limbs on the very same side. Second, the Romberg test is that super clever tool for telling the difference between a faulty coordinator and faulty sensory data. And finally, and this is where it gets really interesting, we're now learning the cerebellum's job goes way beyond just movement and into our thoughts and emotions, which leads us right into our final. And that really is the question to leave you with. We've spent all this time talking about the cerebellum as the coordinator of smooth physical movement, but what if it's also coordinating the flow of our thoughts, our social cues, our memories? What happens when that coordination is lost? What does an ataxia of thought even look like? What happens when the little brain that keeps our bodies moving smoothly can no longer keep our minds thinking smoothly?